What's up lol. Haven't talked to you in long time. And I op. You got games on your phone. LOL Arena is not for you LOL. Are you blind? There was big pot behind you. WTF was that? Where was you?
On our website, nextnewsnetwork.com, I'm Elijah, the host of Slightly Offensive. I'm filling in for your host, Gary. Today's story comes from Martin Walsh from the Trending Politics Report. The Texas GOP Senator Ted Cruz has introduced a constitutional amendment that would set term limits on members of Congress. Hopeful, well, he is, of course, quoted saying that today my colleagues will be introducing a constitutional amendment to impose 10 term limits on members of Congress. The Texas Republicans defeated this amendment. The amendment would limit U.S. senators to 2 terms and members of the U.S. House of Representatives to 3 years. Cruz was joined by Republican Senators Mike Braun and Todd Young of Indiana, Mark Rubio and Rick Scott of Florida, and Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania. Ted Cruz has been talking about term limits for years. Here's a 2018 clip of Cruz on Sean Hannity's show talking about how term limits will end the corruption in Washington and the swamp.
Okay, bye, see you.
Happy New Year to you. You know, I've always said about term limits, it's a good idea, it's a bad idea whose time has come. It really would, I think, put politicians to do not what is in their best interest, but to serve the people, which has not been happening in recent years, and I think you would agree, Republican, Democrat, it's gotten pretty bad.
No, Sean, that's exactly right. I mean, the American people overwhelmed.
Well, that didn't take very long. Joe Biden now getting called out for a broken campaign promise. I've got the details. Before I go further, if you're new here, tap the red button down below. Ad-free, uncensored bonus content and exclusive interviews at nextnewsnetwork.com. I hope to see you. Let's go to Courtney O'Brien, who reports for Town Hall that a few weeks ago in Georgia, Joe Biden promised voters that if they voted for President Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff and flipped the state blue, they'd be getting $2,000 stimulus checks. That didn't happen. As Forbes reported at the time, Biden's final pitch to Georgia, vote blue. $2,000 checks will go out the door immediately. Now fast forward to this week, and the president is not exactly delivering because included in his $1.9 trillion TV relief plan are payments of just $1,400. The reporter pressed the press secretary on the mix that she could, with her answer suggesting that the $600 stimulus check sent out starting last month was just the down payment.
President Biden campaigned specifically on $2,000 stimulus checks, and obviously, as we've discussed, the payment is $1,400. There doesn't seem to be an active discussion on actually raising that amount. So is that a broken promise to voters who may have been expecting $2,000 checks if Democrats won And would the administration be open to raising that amount?
Well, you're right that the president is very focused on ensuring millions of Americans receive those checks and that pivotal relief. But that's
He's focused on pivotal relief.
point in time. There was $600 payments, as you know, in the $900 billion package.
When looking at his average approval rating, President Trump is the most unpopular president in Gallup's history.
Our latest CBS News poll shows that a majority of Americans are in favor of President Trump's impeachment.
He left office with terrible polling numbers, and yet
Donald Trump is already starting to lay the groundwork for a return bid for the White House.
We love you. We will be back in some form.
This is the Dollamore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollar. So the day has arrived. Donald Trump's second impeachment trial begins tomorrow. Donald Trump's second impeachment trial begins tomorrow. And public opinion is on the rise in support of what would be his removal from office, even though now that he's gone, though, it'll be his prohibition from running for federal office ever again, if convicted, which is unlikely, because we need 17 Republicans, and Republicans aren't long on integrity. There is one Republican who's not someone who has sued Democrats time and time again. He was an advisor to Ted Cruz. His name is Charles Cooper. He wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, the conservative Wall Street Journal.
Chuck Schumer took panic after top GOP representative issued a call that could end him for good. My name is Elijah Schaefer, the host of the podcast Slightly Offensive, currently reporting for the Next News Network. Please check if you are subs to the channel by hitting the red button below and turning on the bell. Before I get to that report with renewables like solar panels, wind turbines, and even batteries for electric vehicles, use the silver will store. You know what? You just don't have enough silver to cover the demand. This month, every gold or silver 11 memento coin, 100% FedEx reports that we all know the impeachment trial against former President Donald Trump is a spurious distraction to silence dissent and shift attention from the totalitarian chaos that continues to be inflicted upon America by the left. We also know that it should be considered unconstitutional because President Trump is no longer president. Therefore, because nothing about the impeachment is valid, lawful, or unreasonable, Senator Rand Paul has told Fox News that he opposes impeachment in the Senate. He then went on to state that if Trump could be impeached over the language, then Senator Chuck Schumer, who leads the impeachment charge, must also be impeached. Take a look.
From Kentucky, GOP Senator Rand Paul. Senator, we'll get to the procedural questions about the Senate trial that I know you're concerned about in a moment, but first, you just heard Liz Cheney. Does President Trump bear any responsibility for the attack on the Capitol on January 6th?
You know, I opposed the notion of, which I think was a misguided notion, of voting to overturn the election either with Congress or with the Vice President. But I think if we're going to criminalize speech and somehow impeach everybody who says, oh, go fight to hear your voices heard, I mean, really, we ought to impeach Chuck Schumer then. He went to the Supreme Court, stood in front of the Supreme Court and said specifically, hey, voices, hey, Kavanaugh, you've unleashed a whirlwind, and you're going to pay the price. You won't know what hits you if you continue with these awful decisions. This inflammatory wording, this violent rhetoric for Chuck Schumer was so bad, the Chief Justice, who rarely says anything publicly, immediately said, this kind of language is dangerous as a mob tried to invade the Supreme Court. So if people want to hold President Trump accountable for language, there has to be a consistent standard, and to my mind, it's a partisan farce when you're not doing anything to Chuck Schumer, not doing anything to Representative Omar, not doing anything to Maxine Waters. It's just not fair. It's just partisan politics under a different name.
Rand Paul is an American patriot. That's what libertarians get, right? They're not trying to be partisan, they're just trying to help the country move forward. Anyway, you can check out our content ad-free and censorship-free at thenextnewsnetwork.com. You can also find my podcast anywhere podcasts are available or here on YouTube, Slightly Offensive. Have a great rest of the week, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm signing out.
Thank you for watching that report. Now, taking a look at this. It's a 5-ounce solid silver Apollo 11 coin.
Well, this is confirmed. Biden signals that he's ready to make his move to punish Donald Trump. My name is Elijah Schaefer, the host of the podcast Slightly Offensive on YouTube. I'm currently reporting for the Next News Network. Please hit that red button below right now to subscribe and hit that bell to receive our notifications every day. Christina Lima from the Gateway Planet reports that Joe Biden said there is, quote, no reason for Donald Trump to continue to receive classified intelligence briefings. Former U.S. presidents are traditionally extended the privilege of receiving classified information. Earlier last week, Jen Psaki confirmed that Biden's national security team was reviewing whether to revoke Trump's access to classified information because the Democrats believe he cannot be trusted with state secrets. And now, CBS Evening News host Nora O'Donnell asked Biden if he thought that Trump should receive an intelligence briefing if he requested one, and he responded, I think not. Take a look.
Well, let me ask you then something that you do have oversight of as president. Should former President Trump still receive intelligence briefings?
I think not.
Why not?
Because of the erratic behavior on the amendment to the insurrection.
I mean, you've called him an existential threat. You've called him dangerous. You've called him reckless.
I believe it.
What's your worst fear if he continues to get these intelligence briefings?
I'd rather not speculate out loud. I just think that there is no need for him to have that intelligence briefing. What value is giving him an intelligence briefing? What impact did we have at all, other than the fact he might slip and say
Well, Joe Biden, the Trump gas machine, suffering from dementia, and afraid Trump to want to, quote, might slip and say something. Anyway, check us out at thenextnewsnetwork.com. You can also find my podcast on YouTube, Rumble, or wherever podcasts are available. Have a great rest of the week. As always, may God bless the United States of America. Signing out. Thank you for watching that report. Let's talk more about that. The keto diet. Again, I've been it over a year. I will never go back. I love it. And it's one of the quickest ways to achieve a younger. Greg Kelly went down to Mar-a-Lago to meet President Trump for the weekend. He's now returned, and he is delivering a good message, a message of hope for all of the Trump supporters out there. I've got the details. Before I go further, if you're new here, tap the red button down below to subscribe and hit the notification bell when you do the weekend in Florida in golf with President Trump. Kelly told the audience that President Trump's spirits are high. You can access Next News Network content and exclusive interviews. Let's go to Jim Hobbs Gateway Pundit, where there's a clip of the popular Newsmax host that Kelly told his audience he spent the weekend in Florida in golf with President Trump. Kelly told the audience that President Trump's spirits are high, he looks great, and he's on top of everything. Everything he does, this guy does not. Everything this guy does not look like he's tired, or he's been there for 2 years.
Spent the weekend in Florida. I just got back this morning. I can't go into too many details because it was off the record. Off the record means it's not like an official interview, so the subject can relax and it can relax. President Trump spent some time with him yesterday on the golf course, and let me tell you this, his spirits are high, he looks great, and he's on top of everything. This time looks like he's retired. Maybe someday I can tell you a few more details.
So, spirits are high. That's a good thing. Now, of course, we are in day one of the impeachment sequel. So the fact that President Trump's spirits are high, despite that, is a very good sign. Now, they say there will be sham Senate impeachment trial, as of course it started today in Washington, D.C. They'll call it culture later. Well, Creepy Joe strikes again. I'm sure this won't be the last time, but this one was caught on a live Zoom call. Makes me really upset. I got the details before I go further. If you're new here, tap the red button down below to subscribe to hit the notification bell when you do, and always remember you can access Next News Network ad-free, uncensored bonus content, and exclusive interviews at nextnewsnetwork.com. Let's go to Christina Lima to get a point of the report of Joe Biden. Tweets on a nurse who is giving him a video tour of a vaccination site in Arizona. The state of Biden hasn't been able to assist babies, tough women, because the COVID pandemic has forced him to socially distance, so he settled for perving on a young woman at Berkeley, asking, are you a freshman at the university? Are you a freshman at the university? No. Good look on your freshman.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you for what you're doing. You're really
Oh, Lord. Are you a freshman at the university?
No.
You look like a freshman.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you for what you're doing. You're really, are you a freshman at the university? Wow. That's not a stupid question. I don't know what it is. Biden kept creeping and said he looked like a freshman. She later told Biden that she's been a registered nurse for 9 years. After reading Jennifer Jacobs' commentary, are you a freshman? No. You look like a freshman. Are you a freshman at the university?
No.
You look like a freshman.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you for what you're doing. You're really, you look like a freshman. No, Joe. You look like a freshman. Comment below. We'll see you with the next report for the next news. Thanks to Senator Rand Paul for filing the motion in the Senate to declare the impeachment of President Donald Trump, the second impeachment, unconstitutional. 5 GOP senators have exposed themselves, and the vote has also shown us some really good news about that trial. I've got the details. Before I go further, if you're new here, tap the red button down below to subscribe and hit the notification bell to dismiss the articles against the former President Donald Trump as unconstitutional.
We want to cross over to Capitol Hill. Garrett Bates is with us watching this. To Daniel's point, Rand Paul's motion or point of order to dismiss this trial, the question then becomes, as Daniel was saying, is this a general interpretation of those who may be on the side of the president when this is all said and done?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. I mean, I think we should look at this as a test vote, that perhaps the final vote on conviction won't be exactly the same, but make no mistake about it. This is a crushing vote for the impeachment managers and for those who would like to see Donald Trump convicted here. I mean, to have...
What this reveals is that they don't have the supermajority at all. Now, got some good news to report. President Trump isn't going anywhere. He is going to continue to be a thorn in the side of the Washington, D.C. establishment. It's what is coming down the pike. I've got the details. Before I go further, if you're new here, tap the red button down below to subscribe and hit the notification bell when you do. And always remember, you can access Next News Network ad-free uncensored bonus content and exclusive interviews at nextnewsnetwork.com. That's where you're watching this right now. With the new White House press secretary taking the podium today, they are tightening the availability of reporters to go in to the White House press briefing room. They're citing conspiracy theorists and things they want to keep out. I don't know how they come to these conclusions, but at least Peter Doocy there in Fox News is one of the only people that appears to be holding this administration accountable inside that briefing room. We've got a video clip that I'll play for you in just a moment. Before I get to that, if you're new here, tap the red button down below to subscribe and hit the notification bell when you do. And remember, you can always access Next News Network ad-free, uncensored bonus content, and exclusive interviews at nextnewsnetwork.com. Thank you for watching, viewers, and thank you for watching. Christina Layla for the Gateway Pundit reports that Joe Biden recently admitted that he can't change the trajectory of the pandemic. In October, Biden attacked President Trump for his handling of the coronavirus. Biden even bragged about having a plan to combat the CD. However, Biden admitted that there is nothing he can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next month. Fox News reporter Peter Doocy called out time ago and let him admit that he was wrong.
Now, wait. I know he always asks me tough questions, and he always has an edge to him, but I like him anyway, so go ahead and ask the question.
Thank you, President. So just a bit, I think the next 3 weeks or so, we'll be at the point where there are 1 million vaccines per day, but it seems like...
No, I think we'll get there before that. I said, I misspoke. I hope we'll be able to increase as we go on to get to the 1.5 million a day. That's my hope.
And then the follow-up to that would be, now that you're president, and you're saying there's nothing we can do to change the trajectory of the pandemic in the next several months. What happened to 2 months ago when you were talking declaratively about I am going to shut down the virus?
I'm going going to shut down the virus, but I never said I'd do it in 2 months. I said it took a long time to get here. It's going to take a long time to beat it. And so we have millions of people out there who have the virus. We're just, for the first day, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I've been doing other things this morning speaking.
You're always wrong, Phil. Well, the Queen of Circleback Mountain has a tweet now that's circling back to bite her. You see this, and the internet is exploding. She certainly regrets this, I'm sure. Let's get into this story. Before I do, if you're new here, tap the red button down below to subscribe and hit the notification bell when you do. And always remember you can access Next News Network ad-free, uncensored bonus content and exclusive interviews at nextnewsnetwork.com. Listen, Brian Flood of Fox News to report that the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki is under fire for a on her release that she sent last year. She used a homophobic slur against the Republican Senator Nancy Graham, referring to him as Lady G. This is controversy. Quote, only in 2020 does hashtag Lady G get to push a bunch of debunked conspiracy theories while questioning Sally P. Yates, a.k.a. an American student. Completed on August 6th of 2020, as the former acting attorney general Sally Yates was set to testify before the
According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump allies are raising hundreds of millions of dollars to back the conservative television network and have expressed interest in even buying the news now, an outlet that Trump has often touted on Twitter.
Editor-in-chief of The Real News and host of the Working People podcast, Maximilian Alvarez, and our Trump is to launch a media network.
Conservative media has covered this election. We've seen a bit of a break. I think a lot of it started around election night when Fox News decided to call Arizona for Joe Biden, and then we heard reports that President Trump was upset with this development. And then, of course, you had, I believe it was last week or the week before, Neil Cavuto on his afternoon show cutting away from Kayleigh McEnany's press conference about the the Trump campaign alleging election fraud. It's instances like that which I think has the Trump campaign or conservative Trump supporters really moving away from Fox News and wanting to embrace maybe more pro-Trump, conservative, un-American news.
Very much kind of how I'm trying to rationalize this whole move, right? It's like, yeah, like we all kind of saw it, right? We saw kind of the moves that Fox News made over the past week and a half that, they're not kind of like moves that you can just kind of brush off. Like, Rupert Murdoch, may be a monster, but he's not an idiot, right?
Back you back, fellas. We are going on a trip, a guilt trip. Yes, this is what Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter, vote of like on Wednesday and tried to legitimize his actions of banning the Twitter handle of American President Donald Trump by writing a feature-length mumble-jumble thread where he constantly tried to evoke emotions of righteousness to stomp over the fact that he had disparaged the freedom of speech and expression of a state head, once the most powerful person in the world. Defending the decision, Jack wrote, I do not celebrate or feel pride in our having to ban Donald Trump from Twitter, or how we got here. After a clear warning, we had to take this action. We made a decision with the best information we had based on threats to physical safety, both on and off Twitter. Was it correct? Dorsey's charade comes at a time when the pressure is mounting on him and his company from all quarters. Firstly, Twitter saw its market value plunge by over 6.4% at the start of the week, which dipped another 2.4% as the sell-off continued into Tuesday's close. The decline saw Twitter's market cap drop by 3.5 billion US. It is not a coincidence that Facebook and Twitter, the two largest social media platforms, saw their $51.2 billion US in combined market value erased over the last 2 trading sessions. The market is miffed by the social media giants, which have set a dangerous precedent for the future. Big Tech has taken up the mantle to create a nanny state where they are the judge, jury, and executioner. and a free capitalistic stock market dreads nothing more than a private player trying to rule with impunity. As reported by TSI, the government of Uganda on Tuesday banned all social media apps and platforms in the country, including Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, citing gross interference of such platforms in the country's democratic process. Twitter put out a passionate statement where, ironically, it put itself in a paradox by saying, "We strongly condemn internet shutdowns. They are hugely harmful, violate basic human rights and the principles of the hashtag open internet." Jack Dorsey and his coterie of Vulcan-level intellectuals should understand that shutting down access to Twitter's vicious bias is not shutting down the internet. And even if it was so, Twitter is not the global protector of democracy. Uganda has effectively become one of the very first countries to come cracking down hard on American big tech entities for their blatant bias.
After Donald Trump was hurriedly ejected off the echo chambers of the left-leaning social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, the world leaders are lining up to give their support to the outgoing president. Among those leading the charge is the European country of Poland, which has come in full support of Trump and is simultaneously chalking out a draft law that will stop social media companies from censoring posts and deleting accounts if it does not violate any Polish laws. The Prime Minister of Poland took the fight to Facebook by writing a scathing piece where he questioned such companies and their partisan decision-making. The Prime Minister said, "Algorithms of the owners of corporate giants should not decide which news are right and which are not." He added that censorship of free speech, which is the domain of totalitarian and authoritarian regimes, is now returning in the form of a new commercial mechanism to combat those who think differently. The Prime Minister's sentiments were echoed by Sebastian Kaleta, Secretary of State at Poland's Ministry of Justice. He remarked that Facebook's decision to remove Trump's account was hypocritical, politically motivated, and amounts to censorship. He further added that the draft law prepared by the Polish Justice Ministry would make it illegal for social media companies to remove posts that did not break Polish law. Kaleta even told a national daily, "Removing lawful content would directly violate the law, and this will have to be respected by the platforms that operate in Poland." As reported by TFI, Trump has received support from world leaders around the globe, even when he is set to leave the White House come January 20. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has reservations about the way Donald Trump's Twitter account was suspended, and she also believes that legislators, not private companies.
On Wall Street, stocks were mixed today. The Dow down 148 points, but well off the session lows. The S&P dropped 7. The Nasdaq, however, up 56 points at its 49th record close of the year. Volume on the big board, 4.9 billion shares. And listen to my reports 3 times a day on the Salem Radio Network. Just what does a Biden-led America look like? If you can imagine it, I can. Both houses of Congress might be controlled by Democrats. Here's a possibility. Some would say a likelihood.
Same man, this time against a private citizen. This was disgrace.
I think we should mark it on the calendar. We did one last year, so somewhere at the end of January next year, we should just do this again and make it like an annual thing. Maybe a 3-day weekend, you get a day off, but it's becoming something that like just Democrats want to do. So maybe we make it like a January.
We all.
I mean, it's beneath the American people. What could it cost? $10?
You've never actually set foot in a supermarket, have you?
I don't have.
Politicians have been patting themselves on the back for securing these $600 stimulus checks, which took Congress
that's exactly where the $600 will go for the vast majority of people on January 1st. Despite how pathetic this relief is, Nancy Pelosi called the check significant for working families, to which most people responded by ruthlessly dragging.
Welcome back. Oil prices higher yesterday, hitting a 13-month high. Take a look at what oil is, $58.68 a barrel after Saudi Arabia pledged extra supply cuts in February and March. Joining me right now is the Short Report publisher, Stephen Short. Stephen, it's good to see you this morning. Your reaction to what we're seeing in the oil markets, it's interesting to note that even as demand has slowed so much globally because of the coronavirus, we're talking about $60 a barrel oil.
Yeah, absolutely, Maureen. What we're seeing is a pricing of stronger fundamentals into the new year. We started to see it over a month ago. We always have to keep in mind that spreads lead the way. What does that mean? When you look at prices along the forward curve, of course we have the spot price and then we have the futures prices. In a normal, healthy market, we want to see backwardation. That is to say, we want to see spot prices greater than futures prices. That is a clear signal that demand in the spot market, in all commodity markets, are cleared in the spot market. Remember that spot prices or demand in the spot market is outpacing supply. That is a normal, healthy market, whatever commodity we're talking about. Now, for the better part of during the start of COVID, we've been in a situation called contango, where spot prices are cheaper. So it may
State attorneys general on President Biden's decision on the Keystone XL pipeline. They say that it will result in devastating damage to state and local communities. What impact do you see if construction of the XL pipeline does not continue?
Well, that is clearly the situation here. And even when we had President Obama in his first term, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, her State Department, the EPA, all signed off on it. And their State Department, that analysis that was done more than 10 years ago.
All right, new poll from Harris shows 59% of Americans say the Capitol Hill riots are being used as an excuse to silence voices on the right. 41% say that the reaction is a legitimate response to the violence we saw on January 6th. That same poll shows 59% think internet and social media platforms have too much power over America's free speech. Only 10% said that there's too little power, with the 31% saying that it's just about the right amount. Joining me right now is former senior advisor to the Clintons, NBC Partner CEO, and the president and managing partner of the Stadwell Group, Mark Penn. Mark, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. So, what was your big takeaway from your most recent poll?
What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here with your third stimulus check update. And, well, apparently some Republicans are pretty mad today, as well as President Joe Biden has changed his mind on something on the third stimulus check package, or maybe he was forced to change his mind. And we're going to go over the latest details of everything else in the third stimulus check package. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on video updates on the third stimulus check package, as well as the student loan forgiveness that is really heating up and probably becoming a very real possibility, as well as other things such as mortgage and rental assistance, Social Security increases, and everything else in the third stimulus check package, such as these monthly stimulus checks that are now proposed for people with children. Yeah, there's a lot coming out in the third stimulus check package, so don't forget to give this video a like, and let's jump right in. Republican House of Representatives lawmakers were fined $5,000 each for bypassing House security screenings yesterday, and they're not very happy. 2 Republican lawmakers are now facing $5,000 fines for bypassing metal detectors while entering the U.S. House of Representatives chamber, after Democrats voted this week to impose the punitive measure to enforce compliance. Republican Representatives Louis Gohmert and Andrew Clyde were issued fines by the Sergeant at Arms over incidents that occurred Thursday, according to a The fines are being issued after the House Democrats voted on Tuesday night to establish the fines, which are $5,000 for the first offense and $10,000 for the second. Lawmakers can appeal the fines to the House Ethics Committees, but if the panel upholds the fines, they will be deducted out of the lawmakers' paychecks and cannot be paid with campaign or congressional office budget funds. Louis Gohmert said that he had left the floor momentarily to use the restroom and was unaware that he needed to be wanded against by a police officer again. He says, quote, "Unlike in the movie The Godfather, there are no toilets with tanks where one could hide something. So my re-entry onto the floor should have been a non-issue." Republicans are also blaming White House staff for the lack of a bipartisan agreement on the third stimulus package. Republican senators who met with President Biden at the White House on Monday told colleagues after the meeting that the White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain was standing in the back of the room shaking his head no throughout the meeting. Quote, "There's simply a mixed signal from him on the unity message," talking about President Biden wanting unity going forward for his 4-year tenure. Senator Kevin Cramer says that Joe Biden was very engaged and well prepared for the meeting. But I also heard that his chief of staff stood at the back of the room and shook his head no at every single point. Senior White House officials said that Republican senators should be more focused on passing the third stimulus check package relief legislation other than pointing the finger at White House advisors for not agreeing to an underfunded proposal. A White House official said Republicans came to the meeting in good faith, and it appears that they'd rather play the blame game than have a substantive conversation about this bill. Republicans were good with $160 billion for state and local funding when President Donald Trump was president, and the number now is 0. If we want to have a serious conversation about the third stimulus package, then let's get help to the folks who need it. Let's start with how much in local funding they were willing to give to Donald Trump. President Biden also said yesterday that former President Donald Trump should not be getting intel briefings. Biden believes that Trump should not receive intelligence briefings because of, quote, because of his erratic behavior unrelated to the insurrection. President Biden declined to speculate, but suggests he sees no value in Trump continuing to receive intelligence reports. Quote, "I'd rather not speculate out loud. I just think that there is no need to give him the intelligence briefing. What value is giving him the intelligence briefing? What impact does he have at all? I expect that he might slip and say something." Also, it looks like President Joe Biden may have changed his mind or been forced to change his mind about something, actually a key part of the third stimulus check package. President Biden said he hoped to work with Republicans on the third stimulus check package, but he said on Friday he wanted to act fast. Mr. Biden told O'Donnell he won't budge on the amount for the $1,400 stimulus checks, but he's willing to negotiate on who qualifies for the checks and on whether a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour will be included. President Biden said he doesn't believe a minimum wage increase will ultimately make it into the third stimulus check package, also known as the American Rescue Plan. The president said the $15 an hour minimum wage is apparently, quote, not going to occur because of the rules of the United States Senate. President Biden says, quote, "I put it in, but I don't think it's going to survive." That's what she said, right? Instead, the president is preparing to work on the standalone $15 an hour minimum wage. Says, quote, "My guess is it will not be in the third stimulus. But I do think that we should have a minimum wage stand by itself, $15 an hour, and work your way up to the, it doesn't have to be boom. And all economics show is to do that the whole time. I am prepared as President of the United States on a separate negotiation wage to work my way up from what it is now, which is, look, no one
everyone should work 40 hours a week and live well below the poverty wage. And if you're making less than $15 an hour, you're living below the poverty rate. So it looks like President Biden may have changed his mind or has been forced to change his mind. It looks like right now the $15 an hour minimum wage will not be included in the third stimulus check package. This is very different because it was in there. So it looks like they may be forced to go a standalone bill route for $15 wage. And this is because it was pretty much voted out by the Senate through the amendment process. Remember, we had the amendment process and the reconciliation process that has now been voted yes on in the House and the Senate. Those are the two, initial stages of the third stimulus check package that have now been passed. And in the Senate, it was Vice President Kamala Harris who broke the 50-50 tie. She has now done that twice and have given the edge to the Democrats in a 51-50 vote in the Senate on the opening stages that have now passed on the third stimulus package. This has led to now the Senate can forge ahead with the $1.9 trillion stimulus package. After they literally voted all night long yesterday until 5 a.m. when they finally got the bill passed by the Senate. This is the initial stages of the reconciliation process. That is the opening stages to pass the third stimulus check package. Remember, because they don't have bipartisan support and they don't have 60 votes in the Senate, they should be every single Republican voted against the third stimulus check package in both the House and the Senate. Not a single Republican has led to this process or to this vote. The Democrats are going to pass this third stimulus check package completely on their own with the reconciliation process, and basically that has additional legislative procedures that they're passing now to pass the third stimulus check package. Honestly, the wheels are in motion on this, and it's really just a matter of time and what the exact details are, like this $15 an hour minimum wage now coming out, because it was voted out as an amendment process. The amendment process is part of the third stimulus check package because they're using the reconciliation rule. So